Manchester City did not solve their crisis at the City Ground. They survived it. There is a difference, and that difference matters more than the 3 points they carried back to Manchester. This was not a statement of recovery. This was not evidence of tactical reinvention. This was a team that has forgotten how to dominate, learning instead how to endure. And in that shift from dominance to endurance lies the most uncomfortable truth about what Guardiola's side has become in the second half of this season. The penalty was not the story. The story was everything that led to the penalty being necessary in the first place. City arrived at Nottingham Forest carrying the weight of a narrative they can no longer escape, that they are vulnerable, that they can be hurt, that the aura of inevitability has been replaced by something far more human. Doubt. Forest did not need to be exceptional to test that doubt. They simply needed to be organized, patient, and willing to wait. And City, for all their technical superiority, for all their possession, for all their patterns of play that have been drilled into muscle memory over years of conditioning, could not break that patience down. This is where the illusion lives. Possession without purpose. Movement without penetration. City passed the ball with the rhythm of a team that still believes the act of passing itself is enough to win matches. But belief does not break down defensive lines. Intent does. And intent has become the missing element in City's attacking structure. Guardiola's teams have always been defined by their ability to suffocate opponents through positional superiority. The ball moves faster than the opponent can reorganize. Space is created not through individual brilliance, but through collective positioning that forces defensive collapse. That system still exists in theory. But theory requires execution. And execution requires conviction. What Forest exposed was not a lack of quality. It was a lack of conviction. City moved the ball horizontally with precision, but they hesitated in the moments that required vertical aggression. They probed without committing. They tested without risking. And in doing so, they allowed Forest to remain compact, organized, and dangerous on the counter. This is the new reality for Manchester City. They are no longer the team that opponents fear will score 5. They are the team that opponents believe they can frustrate into mistakes. And that shift in perception has consequences that go beyond individual results. Guardiola has always been a problem solver. His career is built on the ability to see patterns that others cannot, to adjust mid-match with solutions that feel inevitable in hindsight. But what happens when the problem is not tactical? What happens when the issue is not structural, but psychological? City's shape was correct. Their positioning was sound. Their passing lanes were open. But they could not translate that correctness into danger. And the reason for that is simple: they have stopped believing that possession alone will break their opponents. Forest did not park the bus. They defended with purpose, yes, but they also created moments of genuine threat. City's defensive transitions were slow. Their recovery runs were late. Their compactness, once a hallmark of Guardiola's pressing system, has become fragmented. And in that fragmentation, space opens up. Space that teams like Forest, who do not need control to be dangerous, can exploit. The match became a waiting game. Forest waiting for City to overcommit. City waiting for Forest to drop concentration. Neither happened. And so the match drifted into a kind of tactical stalemate where both teams understood what the other was trying to do, but neither had the conviction to break the pattern. This is not how Guardiola's teams are supposed to function. They are supposed to impose themselves. They are supposed to force opponents into submission through relentless pressure and technical superiority. But imposition requires belief. And belief, once lost, is not recovered through tactics alone. The penalty changed the scoreline. It did not change the dynamic. There is a version of Manchester City that exists in recent memory. A version that did not wait for penalties to win matches. A version that attacked with such ferocity that opponents were broken before half-time. That version feels distant now. Not because the players have forgotten how to play, but because the identity that underpinned that style has been quietly eroding over months of inconsistency. Identity in football is fragile. It is built through repetition, through success, through the accumulation of moments where a team's principles are rewarded. But it can also be dismantled in the same way. Not through catastrophic failure, but through the slow accumulation of matches where those principles do not produce the expected result. City's principles have not changed. They still build from the back. They still prioritize possession. They still seek to control territory and tempo. But the outcomes have changed. And when outcomes change, doubt creeps in. Players hesitate where they once committed. They choose safety where they once chose risk. And those small adjustments, compounded over time, alter the fundamental character of the team. Forest did not need to outplay City. They simply needed to exist long enough for City's hesitation to become visible. And it was visible. In the delayed passes. In the sideways movement instead of forward penetration. In the moments where City had numerical superiority but chose not to exploit it. This is not a crisis of talent. This is a crisis of identity. An identity cannot be restored through individual performances or single results. It requires consistency. It requires time. It requires the kind of ruthless, relentless accumulation of dominant performances that City built their reputation on. But right now, they are not capable of that. They are capable of surviving. And survival, for a team of City's caliber, is a step backward. There is a moment in every dominant team's cycle where opponents stop fearing them. Not because they have become weak, but because they have become predictable. Predictability is the enemy of dominance. When opponents know what you will do, they can prepare. And when they can prepare, they can compete. City have become predictable. Not in their tactics, but in their mentality. Opponents now know that if they stay compact, if they limit space in the central areas, if they force City wide and deny penetration, they can frustrate this team into mistakes. They know that City will not take early shots. They know that City will recycle possession rather than force the issue. They know that City, in moments of uncertainty, will choose control over chaos. And that knowledge changes everything. Forest defended with confidence because they believed they could hold. They attacked with purpose because they believed City's transitions were exploitable. And they were proven correct. Not because they were superior, but because City's predictability allowed them to execute their plan without fear of being punished. This is the psychological shift that defined City's current moment. They are no longer the team that opponents fear. They are the team that opponents believe they can manage. And once that belief takes root, it spreads. Every match becomes harder. Every opponent becomes braver. Every drop point reinforces the narrative that this City team is vulnerable. The penalty gave them the result. But the result does not erase the performance. And the performance revealed a team that has lost the ability to intimidate through dominance. This match should serve as a warning. Not because City lost, but because they won in a way that exposes how fragile their current form truly is. They did not impose themselves. They did not control the match in the way Guardiola teams are expected to. They survived. And survival, repeated over time, becomes habit. The danger for City is not that they drop points. The danger is that they begin to accept performances like this as sufficient. That they begin to believe that grinding out results is an acceptable substitute for dominance. Because once that acceptance takes hold, the identity that made them great erodes entirely. Forest proved that City can be frustrated. They proved that City's attacking patterns, without conviction, can be nullified. They proved that this team, for all its talent, is no longer capable of breaking down organized defenses through sustained pressure. The penalty masked that reality. But reality does not disappear because a result disguises it. Manchester City are still winning matches, but they are no longer winning arguments. And in football, perception eventually becomes reality. The penalty saved 3 points. It did not save the performance. It did not restore belief. It did not erase the doubt that has settled into every phase of their play. Forest deserved more than they got. Not because they outplayed City, but because they exposed the uncomfortable truth that this City team can be managed, can be contained, can be reduced to hoping for a moment of fortune rather than creating waves of inevitable pressure. This was not a turning point. This was confirmation. Confirmation that City's struggles are not tactical, but psychological. Confirmation that Guardiola's system still works in theory, but lacks the conviction to work in practice. Confirmation that the gap between what City are supposed to be and what they currently are continues to widen. The 3 points matter. But the performance matters more. And the performance revealed a team that has forgotten how to impose itself, how to dominate, how to make opponents fear the 90 minutes ahead of them. City won the match. But they lost something far more valuable, the illusion that they are still a team nobody wants to face. Forest did not beat them, but they proved something just as damaging. They proved that City can be beaten. And once that proof exists, every opponent will believe they can be next. The penalty decided the scoreline. But the performance decided the narrative. And the narrative, right now, is not one of recovery. It is one of a team learning to survive rather than dominate. And for Manchester City, that distinction is the difference between a champion and a contender.